and thanks for joining us on this week's edition of the program Environment Watch on Independent Television with your host, Sonny Duke Okosun. As usual, we'll begin the program by taking you to the news segment where we'll update you with the latest in the world of environment. Welcome to the news segment of Environment Watch. More than 160,000 people could die over the next decade from strokes and heart attacks caused by air pollution. A charity organization has warned that this is equivalent of more than 40 heart and circulatory disease deaths related to air pollution every day. The British Heart Foundation, BHF, which compiled the figures, said there are an estimated 11,000 deaths per year at the moment, but that this will rise as the population continues to age. It wants the UK to adopt World Health Organization WHO guidelines on air pollution and meet them by 2030. Current EU limits, which the UK comfortably meets for fine particulate matter, PM 2.5 pollution, are 25 microgram per meter cube as an annual average. The World Health Organization limits are together at 10 microgram per meter cube as annual average. The BHF said PM 2.5 can have a seriously detrimental effect to heart health, increasing the risk of heart attacks and stroke and making existing health problems worse. Except the federal government rises up to its responsibility of tackling environmental challenges in the country through a workable plan, bequeathing a sustainable environment for future generations might be a mirage. This was the submission of environmentalists on the unsystematic government's approach in phasing out challenges in the sector, which they said has worsened the impact of climate change on the people in 2019. Nigerian environment is still faced with the debacle of oil spills in the Niger Delta, unending desertification, losses of natural habitat, and flooding. In addition, the menaces of plastic and air pollution, blockage of drainages, illegal tree felling, beach and gully erosion, droughts, loss of biodiversity, and illegal wildlife trade and food shortages escalate environmental problems in urban and rural areas. Nigerians were warned of impending floods, but neither the government nor the people did something substantial to mitigate the impact. And indeed, when the floods came, the people and the environment were worse for it. But we hope that in 2020, something tangible, something reasonable will be done to mitigate some of these challenges. And talking about mitigations, some environmentalists have urged the federal government to prioritize mitigation efforts on excessive vehicular emissions, which has become so rampant in Nigerian cities. They said the government needs to see the development as a top environmental problem that requires urgent attention from the nations and critical stakeholders. The effect of emissions from vehicles on the environment and human health, particularly in the Federal Capital Territory, for example, requires an urgent paradigm shift to boost the quality of air for the residents. The global scene is changing in management and approach on environmental issues, while Nigeria, unfortunately, is still crawling amid ambient or polluted air in the FCT. Recent researches have shown that emission of carbon monoxide is as high as 250 parts per million, and outdoor carbon dioxide is 731 ppm, even though the issue has been on the front burner for years. But the fact remains we cannot give what we do not have, as the federal government of Nigeria and its environmental agencies do not have the equipment to adequately capture carbon emission data. And going abroad now, amid the grueling wildfire that raged for several months, thousands of environmental activists had marched in several major cities across Australia against the government's climate policies. A total of 27 people were said to have died on the bushfire incident, while around 2,000 houses or more have been destroyed, with an estimated billion animals that have been affected. The activists are calling on Prime Minister Scott Morrison-led government to act on the climate crisis and do more to stop the bushfires that continue to ravage large swaths of the country. The protests, organized by National Student Organization University Students for Climate Justice took place in 9 cities, including Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and Perth, indicating widespread public discontent after months of increasingly deadly fires. Organizers put the number between 50,000 and 60,000 people that participated in the protests. And back home, 4 years into the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project, HYPREP, initiated by the federal government to clean up contaminated Ogoni land in Rivers State, the exercise is dogged in transparency issues. The federal government flagged off the remediation of contaminated sites in Ogoni land in 2016. The government had, through the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and multinational oil companies, mobilized $180 million for the exercise. A total of 21 contractors were picked for the cleanup and remediation exercise, but the procedure employed by the government has been condemned by critical stakeholders and environmentalists, questioning the process adopted to remedy the sites. Last year, a group, the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISELAC, said the status of HYPREP in terms of its structure, independence, funding, effectiveness, capacity, as well as perception of sluggishness due to bureaucracy, politicization, low responsiveness has affected the cleanup exercise. According to the NGO, the exercise is now backed with identity crisis, procedures, processes, and overheads, perception of corruption, lack of transparency and accountability, complex decision-making, internal crisis of choice between Ogoni and the Niger Delta. Only time will tell how far HYPREP can go in dealing with this environmental challenge that has been there since oil was first discovered in Oloibiri. Elsewhere, residents in Philippines have been urged not to return home as the Philippines volcano continues to spew ash, lava fountains. Tens of thousands of people have been evacuated from a danger zone around an erupting volcano in the Philippines as it continues to spew fumes of ash and generate lava fountains. The Taal volcano, about 37 miles, 60 kilometers south of the capital Manila, on the island of Luzon, began erupting on Sunday, sending ash up to 9 miles, about 14 kilometers, into the air and prompting warnings of a possible explosive eruption. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology recorded 335 earthquakes in the area of volcano, which is one of the country's most active since Sunday, and said more activity is expected in the next few days. Lava fountains generated dark gray steam-laden fumes that reached 800 meters high. According to the Institute, volcanic lightning was also visible. The Institute said that new vents had opened up on the volcano's northern flank and fresh ashfall had landed on nearby towns. Photos from the eruption show ash mixing with rain, creating a thick black sludge that blanketed cars, streets, and homes. In some towns, ash is even heavier than snow, meaning excessive pileups, especially when mixed with rain, can cause roofs to collapse. The alert level for the volcano remains at 4, meaning an explosive eruption could happen in the coming hours or days. Its highest alert level is 5, indicating an eruption is taking place. And that's it on the news segment of Environment Watch on Independent Television with yours sincerely. We'll be right back. Thanks again for joining me on this week's edition of the program Environment Watch, with a special focus on the health and environmental effect of borehole drilling. It's in continuation of our discussions on access to potable water. With the death of public water works, most consumers have to rely on boreholes, whether private or public. In some areas, it's quite easy to drill a borehole, but in other areas, it's pretty difficult because of the water level, which is deep down into the soil.
So much boreholes are being drilled in this city, Benin City, and the aquifer is being pressured right now. The aquifer is under constraint. In fact, my research and my PhD was on the vulnerability of Benin City aquifer. How vulnerable it is to contamination and to the use how can Benin City bear with the growing population? How can the water be sustained? Or is the water sustainable? Is it enough? What are the aquifers in Benin? I have deciphered them. And this, your question, is so timely.
Out of 17 SDG goals, at least 9 are directly related to water. If you can solve water problem, access to water, you solve hunger. Sustainable city, you solve it. A lot of other of these 9 related development goals will be solved. So water is key. If you want to achieve sustainable development goal to meet the target, I think the best option for the government is to declare state of emergency in water sector and solve the problem of water. And if you solve the problem of access to water, you already solved 9 other sustainable development goals. So, and that is why water should be taken serious, and there should be that political will to really invest and look at it and involve professionals. That is what is most important, because we take water for granted. Everybody drill borehole here and there. So the influence of the professional, the importance of professional need to be considered so that it will be sustainable. Otherwise, you will develop, you will invest, but 4 or 5 years down the line, people still complain if the right people are not used for the proper exploration, proper investigation, proper development, appropriate method. Because as I said initially, we have diverse geological terrain in Nigeria. So each locality may have peculiarity of geologic condition that warrant different approach to accessing water. And that is where the professionals are needed, not just quack that we use the same template for everywhere.
The benefits of meeting basic water requirements far outweighs the cost of providing it. According to our recent findings, the cost of providing new infrastructure needs for all major urban water sectors has been estimated to be about $25 to $50 billion per year, which is far below the cost of failing to meet these needs. Water is no doubt the most critical issue facing human development. The rural areas are known for inadequate water supply, but today, even the urban areas in Nigeria are being hit by this same problem. It has also been observed that only 14% of rural households have access to safe drinking water. This has been attributed to lack of investments by both the federal, state, and local governments. The scarcity of potable water in urban areas in Nigeria is heightened by the rate of urbanization, which is also exacerbated by the rapid population increase in the cities. Most of the cities in Nigeria are said to have exceeded their carrying capacity, and as a result, the infrastructural facilities, water inclusive, are inadequate and can no longer serve the areas they were meant to serve. The foregoing explains why there is now over-dependence on borehole for water supply, especially in urban areas. Why is there so much concerns about the proliferation of boreholes, using Edo State as a case study? Professor Christopher Akujeze is the head of the Department of Geology, University of Benin, while Professor M.N. Tijani is a hydrogeologist from the Federal University of Technology, Akure.
Right now, I'm afraid that at the rate of the growth in population, Benin City may not be able to sustain the number of the people. The growth rate in Benin is about 2.8%. And you can imagine, and the population was about 2.9 million in 2004. You can now estimate what it should be in 2019 at the growth rate of 2.9. It should be something else. And I'm still following up my research on the vulnerability of the Benin City aquifer to contamination. And one frightening thing is the recent flooding systems in Benin. The attempt to rechannel the flood water through what we call sump. My fear is, how well is the sump? how technically prepared is the sump to reach the aquifer with water, and how clean, how can this water infiltrate to get to the water table? How much filtration will take place? I don't think much research has been done to it. And there are also some other projects in the GRA where flood water is being rechanneled to the Benin City aquifer. And my fear is that the water table is too shallow to receive adequate filtration of such flood waters in this GRA. I'm asking the government to do a lot of consultation.
The major consequences of the proliferation of boreholes to the environment are reduction in the net flow of underground water, the risk of saline intrusion, reduction in the level of groundwater and a drawdown effect, spread of pollution and water contaminants such as feces, heavy metals. Borehole proliferation could lead to groundwater receding and thus affecting vegetation. However, the greatest concerns by most specialists is a lack of standards in groundwater exploration and exploitation, which they say have far more reaching health implications.
Right now, there is no control. Benin City is dwelling on the first aquifer, and almost every household, every compound has a borehole. And you can imagine each borehole is supplying at least 1,000 liters per day. I have sent my students right now, many of them, about 2 of them, are they're compiling the number of boreholes from Obowo to Oluhu. I'm also planning to send some other students to compile the number of boreholes from Obowo to Ipoba Hill and beyond. And this will give us detailed inventory of the amount of water being delivered to the people. These are privately delivered. The government's delivery has not been sustainable. And I know the government is doing everything to sustain groundwater supply. And the Ipoba River Dam, is no longer supplying. It has failed. And I know that our good governor has paid attention to resuscitate that dam and then make it functional.
2 hydrogeologists, Mr. Charles Olumese and Dr. Matthew Ofodile, a past president of the Nigerian Mining and Geoscience Society, brings us more insights.
Water occurs both on the surface and underground, and some areas are endowed by plenty of surface water and maybe little or no underground water. Other places are endowed by underground water and little or none of surface water. So what is normally done is to manage the 2 resources, available resources, properly, either by using the one that is available or using both conjunctively, as we say in our parlance. So water management is very, very important.
This challenge of the so-called proliferation of boreholes is because every household wants to meet their water need, and the cheapest possible source is underground water. If government had fulfilled their own purpose of giving every household their water need, nobody will need to go and invest so much money in sinking a borehole. The problem is not in the number of boreholes. The problem is the unprofessional practice of those involved in it. If the water is abstracted professionally and with integrity and character of the underground water maintained, you have no problem. But when you have an all-commerce game, even a spare parts seller, a crayfish seller, has now become a borehole driller. They don't even know what it takes to drill a borehole. And at the end of the day, rather than maintain the character and integrity of the underground water, their action is now a source of pollution to the groundwater. There is an incident in Benin here where somebody's borehole in his own house, he couldn't take it because they were having maggot from it. Why? Because the well was unprofessionally constructed and rats found their way into the water and died there. And they started to decompose. They started to notice odor. In an attempt, and they called me, and I went there, and I said, look, whoever gave you this well, they did do a professional job. You can't drink this well. You have polluted the aquifer. Not only yours now, for all the people around you. So that is the challenge.
Degradation of the aquifer, in the area by proliferation of boreholes and other issues are concerned that are related. Now it's two-pronged. First, you begin to deplete the aquifer in ways that are in more ways than even one. Now you find water levels may drop, but the worst is the pollution of the aquifers in question, because when that happens, you cannot easily remediate those aquifers.
The inability of government at all levels to supply water has led to the proliferation of boreholes. Therefore, there is the need for moribund water facilities to be reactivated, upgraded, and expanded to accommodate increased demands, because it is a right of citizens to have access to good and constant water supply.
We need the input of our professional hydrogeologists, particularly the environmental professional hydrogeologists, to ascertain the quality of the groundwater that the Benin City Aquifer will supply to the population of Benin.
We have, in the last couple of years, expanded access to water, across our landscape through various interventions in borehole schemes and also mini schemes that provide water, to communities. We are also currently undertaking the construction of a major dam in Edo North Senatorial District, that is precisely in Otuo, for the purpose of providing water for treatment to supply to about 250,000 people. This project is ongoing, and God willing, in the next 1 to 1.5 years, we will deliver it. In addition to that, we are also developing irrigation schemes, to put our water resources to use so that agriculture can be practiced all year round. It doesn't have to depend on only rain-fed farming. We believe that if our strategy is achieved, then the incidence of national food security or sovereignty, will be achieved.
With the concerns that have been expressed on the health and environmental implications of drilling boreholes, it is expected that authorities in charge will look at this issue critically, just to ensure that what people consume is something that will be good for their health and will not negatively impact on the environment. That's where we draw the curtains on this week's edition of the program Environment Watch on Independent Television. We hope you enjoyed it while it lasted. Be sure to join us next week, or we'll bring you a fresh edition of the program. My name is Sonny Duke Okosun. Thank you for staying with me. Have a great week ahead. Bye for now.